Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Tonight, we've got a late night insight or a quick hit video on one of the most hyped iris fragrances in the community. And it came out in 2016. And the fragrance is called L'Tessa. And L'Tessa is a Masque Milano creation. Its perfumer is Luca Maffei, who Luca Maffei is a perfumer who just did Zoologist's most recent release for 2023 called Harvest Mouse, which I actually have a review on. And I mentioned Luca Maffei kind of being a perfumer that mostly kind of works on the outskirts still. He's slowly working his way into the mainstream conversation, but he did a lot of stuff for niche Italian brands and stuff like that. But this is maybe his most famous work. And so L'Tessa is held out as this example of one of the best iris fragrances in the industry. So, does it match up? Is it one of the best iris fragrances in the industry? And so I just have a sample that was very kindly sent to me by one of you, one of my perfume god people, and I've been sitting on this long enough. And so I've been wearing this for the last 5 hours here. It was not my scent of the day. My scent of the day was actually this, which, by the way, before we get started on L'Tessa, I feel like I do have to give a shout out to my scent of the day. It deserves to get a little bit more love. This is a Bois 1920. And if you're thinking you know which one this is, you're actually wrong, because this is not the one that you're thinking. This is Bois 1920 Extreme. And Bois 19, whoops, let's show you guys the right side, shall we? Oops, actually that was the right shot. Bois 1920 Extreme is my scent of the day, or was my scent of the day. If you've never smelled Bois 1920 Extreme, it is a very well done niche take on Zeno, or Heritage, or YSL Jazz, or all the stuff I talk about that I love. It's that woody, spicy, lavender, clary sage, geranium, amber. It's an amber fougere. I did an amber fougere video just the other day, and I left this out, unfortunately. There's just too many to remember every single one, but I left this out. This should have been included in the amber fougere list. If you already own Heritage, or if you already own Zeno, or something along those lines, you probably don't need this. This might seem overkill to you, but for me, this is it's a must own, because I love that DNA so much. It's just it's so true to, I'm so at home when I wear these type of scents. And I wore this to work today. It's absolutely stunning. It lasts forever. It is the patchouli is probably a little bit more amped up than in some of the other scents that I mentioned. The patchouli here is very heavy. If you like the way that Bois 1920 does their Real patchouli, you should give this a sniff. So a discontinued niche fragrance that gets almost no talk, Bois 1920 Extreme from 2005. Okay, so let's talk about L'Tessa. I'm going to give you guys my initial impression, and I want you to remember that this is nothing but an initial impression. So if I wear it more, my thoughts could change, but here's kind of how I view this so far. Before I get started, got to give my sponsorship a shout out. Just kidding. Fiji doesn't sponsor me, obviously, but I do love their water. L'Tessa. So L'Tessa opens up smelling like a proper high-end iris, high-end, very well done perfume. And the thing that I love about L'Tessa, just getting to wear it this very first time, is that L'Tessa feels to me like it really shows the multiple faces of iris. And so at different points along the wear, I feel like I'm getting different things. So, for example, sometimes the iris feels to me like it is powdery, which it's so famous for. It's famous for giving that powdery pizzazz, right? Sometimes the iris feels makeup-y. Sometimes it feels rooty. Sometimes it feels cold. But mostly the iris in this creation feels sort of, creamy like a cake. It almost feels like frosting, there is a champagne note in the top, which we'll talk about, but champagne and wedding cake kept coming to mind as I was wearing this scent for some reason. And champagne and wedding cake kept coming to mind. So mostly the iris that you get is creamy, warm, and inviting. And you know, there are so many different iris fragrances out there that are kind of held up as this reference iris, right? So here's a couple of them. I'll just show you a couple that I own. One I just wore a couple days ago as my scent of the day, so I'm very familiar with it. I love this fragrance. I'm so glad to have it, and it's the original silver stem of Dior Homme. Now, let me just tell you, before I go any further, I've heard some rumblings in the community that say, oh, but this is just the standard iris molecule that, you know, the designer houses used. It's not the true high-end iris that Masque Milano used. And they're probably right. I think that there is some truth to that story. But I love this. I love wearing, honestly, I love wearing this as much as I've enjoyed wearing this so far. And so, you know, unless you're some sort of an ingredient snob and you have to have a certain ingredient done at a certain level in your perfume, it's about the wear. It's about your nose and what you like to wear, right? And so for me, Dior Homme, the original silver stem from 2005, holds up beautifully as a reference iris. I love this stuff. Oh, it's so good. And then probably the one that more... you know, people who are really into perfume as a hobby would agree with is Hiris. Hiris for me is like the reference, just if you want an iris soliflor, Hiris is it. But I think it's more than an iris soliflor personally. Hiris is a creation by Olivier Jacobetti in 1999. And of course, then Jean-Claude Elena redid it in this version right here. This is the Jean-Claude Elena reformulation, if you will. The original Olivier Jacobetti comes in an all purple bottle, beautiful bottle, but it's ambery. There's a little bit of green carnation in there. It's just a perfect iris. Just, you know, the focus is always on the iris in Hiris, okay? And there's a little bit of honey, there's a little bit of vanilla, it's very wearable, and the wood here they used is cedar. So keep that in mind, because what makes this fragrance, I think, the reference iris, personally, for me, is that iris is the center of the fragrance's development, and in the opening, the heart, and the base. It's all about the iris, right? For Hiris, it is. And I think Latessa tried to implement that. I think they tried to kind of take that DNA, add a little bit more niche sparkle, but they always tried to keep iris at the forefront. And you know, to my nose, iris is a very hard ingredient to highlight. It's not easy to highlight something so beautiful. And actually, I've been very blessed, and I'm sure I'm in a very unique position where Russian Adam sent me these 50 ingredients. If you go watch my Russian Adam interview number 2, under interviews, I have a playlist of interviews, so it's the Russian Adam interview number 2. Me and him go through each ingredient one by one. This is a very special iris that he sent me. So if you look right here, you'll see it says Oris 80% Irones. And, you know, if you listen to some of these niche brands brag about the iris they use, like, for example, Francesca Bianchi very famously does this on her website, and it'll say, Oris butter at 15% Irones, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, like, 15% Irones, guys, give me your money, just give me your money right now, you know, it's over. And, you know, so I'm very blessed, because smelling something, and what I did is I put, it's been a while since I've actually smelled this, and you can see how white the paper looks at the tip where I actually dipped it in the Oris with the 80% Irones. And oh my God, I think if heaven had a smell, this would be it, honestly. I don't think I've smelled just a more beautiful ingredient in my entire life, my fragrance journey. I've smelled some very beautiful compositions, and you guys know what some of my favorite fragrances are. You know, the Antaises of the world, the Bellamy's, the Diaghilevs, the Mitsukos, all the stuff I love, right? But this smell in and of itself is almost spiritual. I mean, it's almost enough to bring a tear to your eye. It is so stunningly beautiful. I mean, if I was a perfumer, no matter how good I was, no matter how much experience I had, and somebody gave me this and said, recreate this smell, I think I would pull my hair out. I think I would have a mental breakdown, because with modern ingredients, okay, with modern ingredients, how can you recreate this? I mean, it is rooty, it's earthy, it's powdery. This is much colder, though, than the Iris that Masque Milano puts forward. This is a little bit more warmer and enveloping, okay? Whereas this, just the pure Oris 80% Irones, is much colder. I find that coldness much closer to something like Serge Lutton's Iris Silver Mist, okay? There's a little bit of coldness here, which is slightly hinted upon in the Iris in Laetessa, but not as much, not as well done as the Serge Lutton. Okay, so here's the note listing, just so you guys know. Italian bergamot, and I'm reading it directly from the official sample from Laetessa. Italian bergamot, neroli, champagne accord. Italian iris root butter. French iris root butter, Italian iris absolute, tuberose absolute, which I don't get any of that, ylang ylang, Mysore sandalwood. Now, that's a big one. They list Mysore sandalwood, and, you know, Mysore sandalwood is very heavily regulated by the Indian government. So anytime I see Mysore sandalwood on a modern, like, niche fragrance like this, like Creed will sometimes list Mysore sandalwood, my warning bells always start to go off, right? Because I know just how rare it is and how expensive it is. And, you know, I've smelled Mysore, real Mysore, thanks to Russian Atom. And, this doesn't smell like there is real Mysore sandalwood in it, but we'll get to that later on. But there very well could be. There could be enough. There could be you know, enough where legally they can say it's in there, but I don't get this Mysore sandalwood vibe. Oak moss and leather accord. Very interesting, because I don't really get a leather accord either. So the first, let's say, head and heart notes, as they describe it, I agree with. The base notes, I do get a general woodiness, which we'll talk about later, but you know, some of the claims that they make kind of get my warning bells going, but that doesn't take away anything from this fragrance. It's a beautiful perfume, okay? I will admit that right up front. I'll put my hand on the Bible, and I will admit Laetessa is as beautiful as everyone makes it seem. So let me take you through kind of the journey. So this is the way that my nose smells it, okay? So the iris here, it almost feels like, so you're smelling all the beautiful parts of iris in one perfume, but they kind of hit you in different phases, right? So in the very beginning, you get that champagne accord with, like I mentioned, it has that creamy feel to it. And the creamy feel gives off this buttery, you know, imagine like almondy wedding cake, right? So champagne and wedding cake. And, you know, the iris here actually has the fluffy quality of wedding cake. So it's even a luckier comparison than I initially even thought when I thought of it. And because it does have that fluffy, powdery feel to it. And the most important thing about this fragrance to me, though, the notes that I took, is that this iris adds this dimension, okay? So what ended up popping into my brain, which is usually the way I'll just take these notes. I'll smell it and I'll jot down what comes to mind. is that there is dimension, there's texture, there's heft. Okay, those are the three big things that Iris adds to Latessa: dimension, texture, and heft. And that makes this fragrance a very special fragrance right off the bat, because many fragrances nowadays are 2D. They're flat, they're boring. It's like opening an old soda, you know, it's flat. There's no fizz. This fragrance, the first hour, will captivate you. It will grab you, it'll captivate you. You'll feel like you're smelling one of the best Iris fragrances in the world. The first hour, okay, the first hour. You know, to me, what also popped into my head, which may not make sense, but it felt true to me, so I wrote it down, is it feels like you're smelling a mathematical formula. It feels like you're smelling what a rules-based universe would smell like. And what I mean by that is, imagine you're looking at a painting and the painting stays within the borders, right? My hand can go off of the screen and it's here, I can see it, but you can't, right? The rules of the game for you are, you can't see my hand, right? But I know it's there. The Iris adds this, I don't want to just say 3D, because it almost seems like 3D even cuts it short, but it adds this dimension, it adds this realism to the perfume, which really feels like is missing from so many modern perfumes nowadays. This came out in 2016, so I consider this a modern perfume. And, you know, the other thing that came to mind is, you know, imagine you're like playing a soccer game where you have to play by the rules of the soccer game at that time, right? The ball leaves the boundary, it's out of bounds. That's the rule, right? You're in the little soccer square. Soccer is played on the square. You have to follow the rules while you're playing the game. And if the ball goes out, what do? You pick it up and you throw it back in, right? Those are the rules of the game. This feels like I'm smelling a rules-based game, and it feels real. But at the end of the day, it all still feels like a game to me, if that makes sense. Especially when I smell stuff like this. This is an Iris perfume killer to me. My God, man. I mean, I wish you guys could smell this with me. This is like, it is so hard to recreate this. I could not imagine being a perfumer trying to recreate this. I mean, this would keep Dominique Ropion, Jean-Claude Elena, Pierre Bourdon, every perfumer who thinks they've achieved everything that their career is to achieve. I wish they could smell this. And so for me, Latessa, in the first hour, okay, it captures your imagination because it has this shimmery effect to it. You know, the champagne adds this fizziness, almost like you're smelling built up energy that's being released, you know? You're popping that bottle of soda and the fizz, the carbonation is coming. You're popping that champagne cork and releasing the pressure, right? You're pouring that glass of champagne and the bubbles are just constantly, you know, not overflowing, but even at a standstill, you can still see the bubbles, you know, coming up within the champagne, right? That's the feeling of the opening of Latessa, with the warm, slightly cold, but not as cold as Iris Silver Mist, mostly creamy and warm and rooty, very rooty. You get lots of that Iris root here, and it smells beautiful, okay? It absolutely does. Once you hit the hour mark, though, the fragrance to me does its first transition. And that first transition is it goes from that warm, creamy, inviting Iris with that champagne fizz, that rootiness, that wedding cake, you know, creaminess, to a bit more of spiciness. And I'm not 100% sure where that spiciness came from. I just did a video on tuberose. And for that video, I actually pulled out the tuberose absolute, just like I did with the Oris today. And I put it on the blotter, okay? And if you go watch my tuberose video, you'll see me do that. And so I'm very familiar with what actual tuberose Otto smells like to me. I don't get any tuberose absolute from this. Maybe a little bit of ylang ylang. Ylang ylang can also add that creaminess. So remember earlier I said there's this creamy, cakey, wedding cakey feel, right? Ylang ylang can sometimes come across as very creamy floral. But if I had to pick one flower that was more dominant than the other on my very first wearing, again, this is a very first wearing. This is an early impression. This is it. This is all the juice I have. I don't have a full bottle. So I would say that ylang is more prominent than tuberose. Tuberose is there more kind of conceptually, right? It's not there as like a real smell of tuberose. And what it flips into, though, transition, if you're reading the note listing, you're going to think, okay, it's going to flip into a floral. It kind of doesn't. What it flips into is a spicy fragrance. It feels like it flips into a spicy fragrance. And you guys know I like to wear my fragrances before I read the note listing. And as I was jotting notes down, the mid, I thought, was going to say cardamom or something like that. Some sort of spice. There's nothing. There's no cardamom. There's nothing. But it does feel like it kind of turns into this woody, spicy thing. And that's usually hour 2 to 3. It stays. So what's so interesting about it is it remains iris at its heart. Just like I said, Hiris at its heart is an iris soliflor, but there's so much more going on, right? I mentioned the amber, the carnation, the coriander, the neroli, rose, honey, vanilla, cedar, all this other stuff, right? And Latessa kind of feels like that as well. There's all this other stuff going on, but iris is at its heart. It's an iris fragrance through and through. But, while I get fantastic performance out of stuff like Dior Homme and Hiris, I can tell you that once hour 3 sets in, it basically, this is about 5 hours on the dry down now, and this is right around 3 hours, if my math is correct. And it flips again, and it seems to kind of just lose all of its steam. It just loses all of its steam. And it's almost like your nose, or my nose, is just left hunting for it, like I'm a hound dog looking for that beautiful first hour. And you can still smell a trace of the iris, but it mostly dries down into this woody base, which I don't even know what type of wood. It doesn't smell like I just dropped it. There it is. It doesn't smell like you're smelling, this high-class Mysore that I'm used to. At least not, if it's anything like the real Mysore I've smelled, I'm expecting to be blown away by this creamy, woody, relaxing dry down. This very, again, Mysore is also a spiritual note. So you talk about iris being spiritual. Mysore is a very spiritual note, a very relaxing. And the dry down is soft and elegant and slightly woody. But by hour 4, most of it's gone. I get a slight, very slight, woody base. I don't want to say amber woods, because I would think amber woods would just be pumping off the skin, but there is this slight woody, base. And it just, it leaves your nose like a hound dog looking for that beautiful, first couple hours, because the first couple hours is such the word that kind of popped in my head is absorbing. This fragrance like absorbs you. You are completely, it almost like it melts you by its beauty, and then it's gone. And you're like, Jesus Christ. Now, here's the difference. This right here, and I know it's not fair to compare a fragrance, even if they claim this is the most high quality orris in the world and all the stuff that the brands claim, right? And I get it, right? They have to, they're also marketers in some sense. But this, I will smell this for weeks. I will smell this for weeks. And this is on a blotter. Oh my God. So why do I want to spend whatever Latessa is? I don't even know. Let's say it's $300. I'm guessing it's pretty expensive. Let's say it's $200 to $300, and for 3 hours of enjoyment, and that final fourth hour, I'm just going, is it there? Is it there? Is it there? The performance is pretty bad, but the fragrance is beautiful. It's a stunning, elegant, charming iris. Sometimes when I sprayed a little bit heavier, here I did 2. Here I did like 4 or 5, right on one spot. The iris came across smelling a little bit carroty. Carrot is a trick that some fragrances use. Like, for example, this is one I like to mention because it smells like Loewe's take on the Dior Homme DNA. And it's called Loewe 001 Man. This is a beautiful take on an iris. But guess what? There's no iris in here. You know what it is? It's carrot seed. So this is so good. So actually, this is another example. And I've got stuff like this scattered all over my collection, Iris leathers are one of my favorite categories. I've got a ton of iris leathers that I could wear. So why would I want to go, spend the money on a bottle of Latessa when, I would just wear stuff from my collection? That's my take on it. So for me, the fragrance itself gets a thumbs up. The iris is, yes, it is as beautiful as everyone says, but I only feel like the first couple hours, 2 or 3 hours, I really enjoyed the beauty of that iris. And then my nose was just kind of left wanting, I can still smell, even at 5 hours, I can smell that woody dry down. And maybe it's because I'm wearing such a heavy fragrance today. In Bois 1920, I can smell this from, I must have sprayed this on my hand 10 hours ago. And I can smell it clear as day. Whereas Latessa, from 5 hours ago, I'm kind of struggling. There was also a moment in the mid, I should mention this, there was a moment in the mid where I thought I was smelling geranium. There is no geranium listed. I thought I was smelling geranium. Maybe my Bois 1920 Extreme was interfering a little bit with my smelling of Latessa. But I was getting this whiff of geranium in the mid, which, when I thought about it, made sense, because that's, I bet you, where they would stick a little bit of something like that to give it a little bit more spiciness. Geranium can be spicy. It can also be rosy, and that's usually where you'd find a flower like a rose in a composition like this. So my guess is that maybe my nose was right, or maybe I was just smelling, how strong Bois 1920 Extreme is, which is also very beautiful and deserves way more limelight than it gets. So that's kind of my take. I mean, I would love to smell more from this brand. I have a 10 ml decant of Tango from Masque Milano, which I really enjoy. I enjoyed this, but I don't think I would find myself with a bottle. I mean, unless I get on the free bottle list from the brand, you won't see a bottle of Latessa in my collection. But I'm very grateful to have gotten to do this video, because this is one of the ones that I always feel like gets thrown in my face sometimes when I talk about irises, and they're like, oh, you haven't smelled Latessa? Oh my God, you have to smell it. It's the best iris of all time. And it is very good. Is it the best iris of all time? No. I mean, I would just wear Hiris if I wanted a true iris. I think this is actually, as far as like designer perfume goes, the best iris money can buy. If you can find this bottle for $100, you're getting an out and out steal. And so yes, I mean, I love iris, clearly. I know I'm spoiled smelling stuff like this, which is 80% Irones. Oh my God. It is just, I mean, it's eye rolling. It's eyes roll in the back of your head. Unbelievable. which is what you want to say about a fragrance like this, right? That's what you want to be able to say about a fragrance like Latessa. But I can easily say it about this Oris 80%. 80% Irones. Fuck. It's just heavenly, man. I mean, that's what I imagine an angel to smell like, truly. So yes, that's kind of my take. Am I glad to try Latessa? 100%. 100%. Thank you to the perfume god person that sent it to me. You know who you are. Although it gets mixed up in my head now who's sending me so many, because so many people have sent me some stuff. I should have some more stuff coming very soon, hopefully. I'm going to go check tomorrow. I bet you there's a couple more unboxings. So, should be a good time. We've got a lot of content for the channel. Thank you for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the video. I would love to hear your feedback on Latessa and the brand of Masque Milano in general. If you have experience with the brand, do let me know. Appreciate the feedback and the support everyone's given me. I did get the new microphone and the new camera for the live stream, so the stream should be better, you know, when we're doing stuff like interviews and stuff like that. So thanks a lot, everybody. Hope to see you in the comments. Cheers, guys. Talk to you soon. Bye now.